Asking yourself, what could I do? What should I do when you are in a pivot can keep you completely stuck. Asking yourself, what would I do if is what unlocks the intentional pivot. It's MB. Thanks for joining me here today. I'm so glad that you're here. In reflection of the past week, it's been pretty crazy and it's been pretty clear that over the last 35 years of my career, I have mostly relied on my education and my experience in pivoting. What I could do, number one, I could be in upper level management. I could drive a company's growth. I could be an entrepreneur. I could have been successful at a number of things because I was. Whereas I could not be a helicopter pilot, even though that's what I wanted to do since a very young age. You could have your list of what I could do right now as you're facing an in-between situation in your own life. But secondly, what I also noticed in reflection was that my career path and my coaches, my mentors, have also guided me along what I should do. Common sense also leads to what I should do, staying in the direct selling sector. This is where I built my entire career. I've climbed the corporate ladder here. I should stay on the company side. Some people would argue because I've had a lot of success there and probably the most impact overall. It's been financially viable for my family as well. I should stay in health and wellness because it's a passion and I have a lot of concentrated focus there. I should not work for a company that doesn't care about people and that doesn't care about the environment. So should and could and should, both are extremely logical. They make perfect sense. Sense that we need to pay the bills, sense that we need to keep the lights on, common sense, food on the table. You have a personal list of these as well. I know that you do. But at this time, at this place for me, and this is my journey, thank you again for joining me here. I'm navigating changes here, and I want to apply this pivot differently than I've done in the past. And I want to ask a different question, not what could I do, what should I do, but what would I do if? What would I do if I had the freedom to create a new chapter that really captures the essence of who I am, as a person, my values, my beliefs, my passions, my purpose? What would I do? Not could, not should, if this intentional pivot wasn't about making the most money or advancing my career or building my resume, playing it safe, but about something entirely different that's not just about building a business or building somebody else's business. In other words, what would I do if I could intentionally pivot the next chapter, relying on my time, talents, and treasures, investing those things into living my true purpose with clarity? And this is where I spent most of last week, friends, in this creative space of the in-between. And if this sounds interesting to you, I would be so honored if you would subscribe below and walk with me for just a little bit. A quick level set to the methodology that I've been applying for this past month. In the in-between, beginning with the first steps that I've considered, which is adjusting my mindset that the in-between is a gift and that I need to own it. Secondly, that the intentional pivot is not a vacation and it's really a strategic opportunity to maximize the gift of the in-between. And then also that I need to have it structured, setting up a pivot as a priority project. And I've applied this methodology numerous times over the last 35 years, really in 10 different pivots in my entire adult career. And then it really led up to taking action, starting to take action now, setting up that pivot as that primary project, as I was talking about. And I'll be diving into those individual buckets over the next few weeks. But for today, it was really about looking at my system and saying, I need to identify at this point my purpose. Some people refer to it as their why, but I'm going to be referring to it as identifying and knowing your purpose, right? Because that's what I've been doing. And over these few minutes that we have together, I'd be love you to share your thoughts down below, what you think your purpose, your life purpose is, because as I've applied it, I find that it's really the foundation for a successful pivot. Most successful pivots, whether my own or someone else's that I've watched, that I've viewed, that maybe I've been a part of. I've seen it, I've lived it. They are built on knowing your purpose. And so again, click like down below if that sounds good to you. That's really where I spent again this week. I started with my why, and in reviewing where I've been since the previous pivot, it's a given. I always start there because, there are so many approaches to it. Oh my goodness, identifying your why, knowing your why, living your why. And I was curious and I looked it up, and there are 1,500, no, not 1,500, 15,000 books that are written every year for personal development, self-help books published every year, 15,000 of them. And I know this because I'm in stage one of starting to write my first book as well. More on that to come. But the 4% of that 15,000 are distinctly characterized by people looking to read about why, the why category, I would call it. And so, in other words, it's related to purpose and to passion and to vision. And that puts it roughly at about 600 books, 600 new books written every single year for us to consume. Why? Well, because clearly it's a topic of interest. Why? Because it's foundational. It's vitally important. And, Steve Jobs, I came across a quote from him this week, and he said that you've probably heard it before, but I am convinced that one half of entrepreneurs who are successful versus those who are not are because they have the characteristic of pure perseverance. A little bit of paraphrasing there. But if we want to be successful in an intentional pivot, it's going to involve more than could and would, could and should, but it's going to be pretty obvious after focusing on this last week that I need to simplify this because I just got overwhelmed in looking around at too many books. I was reading too many books all at one time, trying to really dig in and say, have I really contacted and connected with personally, this purpose of mine in today's world, in where I live today, this year, this day. And the problem was, as I started to try to simplify it, I realized that confirming my why, that I didn't necessarily agree with some of the approaches. And that just caused me kind of that analysis paralysis. And boy, do I hate it when that happens. I imagine you do too, because over the years, I have studied, I have designed numerous duplication systems, sales duplication systems. And, the first step in pretty much all of them universally is know your why. I mean, think about it. It's like start with why, know your why. It all begins with why. It's the majority of them. And it goes back to really Amway. You think about Dexter Yeager, for example, who some would just say that, was one of the greatest networkers of all time. If you look at his system, knowing your why, it starts right there. And Simon Sinek, as recently as 2009, came out with his, Start with Why book, which created just a big fervor of excitement. It moved into his TED Talk, Great Leaders Take Action. And of course, that TED Talk, even today, is still in the top 3 of the most TED Talks viewed of all time. I know that, I have the book, Finding Your Why. And you may have read this. Mine's all marked up and highlighted. And that really is the guidebook that is the companion to his first book. And so, it's something that, we look at this all the time and say, oh, find your why. But it really hit me when I was listening to a comedian. His name is Michael Jr. You may have heard of him. Lovely man. Actually, I had him entertain us at an event, gosh, over a decade ago. And he was talking about it. And he was really comparing applying the why to the what in one of his fun little skits. And that's really when it hit me. That's really, really when it hit me that in its own way, the what matters just as much, if not more, than the why. Now, if you're familiar with Simon Sinek, if you're familiar with the Golden Circle, you know that there's a what in there, right? What is it that you do? How is it that you do it? And why are you doing it? And that's at that center of the bullseye, right? And it's in there for sure. But as I was thinking about how I'm going to simplify this, it really came to my mind that there are three questions that I need to answer right now. And I would encourage you to think about them today as well. And the first one is, what is the one challenge in the world that I'm passionate enough about that I'm willing to devote my life, this stage in my life, to help try to minimize it or even fix it overall? Secondly, what is it that lights me up specifically? And this is something that I have asked in every single interview, and I've done well over 1,000 of them, I'm sure. but I always ask what lights you up. So I'm looking for alignment, clearly. And then what am I so excited about? What am I so excited about today that I have to take action? And it really comes down to that simplicity, because my why is pretty set. My why has been adding value to people's lives by bringing joy for years. I mean, actually, if I think about it, it goes back to when I was 5 years old. And that's when it really started. It might seem strange to have a recollection of five, but I remember it like it was yesterday. Quick story, my parents, they were studying at Cornell University in the 60s. Their marriage wasn't going well, so they sent me back to Oregon to live with my grandparents. That didn't work out so well, so they sent me over to live with my aunt and uncle for a time while everybody was sorting everything out. And I had just gotten over there, been there maybe a couple of days. I was sitting out in the driveway, and it's funny in life how we have these catalyst moments, these moments that change and just kind of define the course of our future, right? And I was 5. I'm sitting there in the driveway. I have my little basket, my colored chalk, and I'm drawing. And there are two ladies, next door neighbor and her friend, standing over the rose bushes that kind of lined her yard, and they were talking about me. And so I kind of pause, of course, and I'm just listening, and they're chatting about, well, who is that? Why is she here? Blah, blah, blah. And then here's the turning point sentence, right? Here's that catalyst moment. The one lady, the neighbor says, oh, the poor little thing. Her own mother doesn't even want her. And it's like, ow, that hurt. I sat there for a second, and I put the chalk back in the basket, and I stood up and I walked back towards the house. And when I got even with them, I looked over, not got even with them, maybe. But I looked at the two of them and I said, I can hear you, right? And I'll tell you the horror on that woman's face. It was pretty overwhelming. I know she felt terrible at the time. And so I walked in. I walked in the house, and I walked upstairs into the attic, my little room up there, and I sat in front of the mirror. I had a little vanity, and I looked into the mirror, and I remember it. And I was looking into the mirror, and I'm thinking, I need to do something. I need to give so much joy to my aunt that she will not send me away, that she will keep me. And so that really was that moment when adding value to people's lives and bringing joy started for me. And it's evolved over time. But, I went right back downstairs, got my little scissors. I went out into the yard. I marched over to that lady who was gone by then's flower bed. And I proceeded to cut my aunt the most beautiful bouquet of roses you have ever seen. So it was pretty impressive. One heck of a bouquet. But that point, today it sticks with me. And I'm sure you have that moment as well that really defined who you are and what your why is. My why, again, bringing joy to people. And so, but in looking at it today, and what I really need to define going into my what's next, going into my next chapter, is the challenge and the solution. And that's not necessarily going to come over something as overarching as my current why. So, and besides, that's going to be my first book, and I hope you'll read it when the time comes. But if you're considering a pivot right now, or you're in one like I am, please hit subscribe so we can walk together for a bit. Because as we head into next week, I'm going to share one more tip that really helped me define this what it is that's going to add that clarity, so that I make sure that as I architect my what's next, I'm doing it with great intention in this pivot. And it was journaling. You may have already done it. I've certainly played with it through the years, but journaling, I started a couple of weeks ago. And I can tell you, it has helped me to dig deep. I mean, really dig deep and consider what I was created and meant to do. It lives in my personal development bucket that I had talked about in my project plan. And as I've dabbled with it, like I say, this is the first time I think in a true pivot when I've really had the luxury, this gift of creative time that I didn't have to jump right back into the next job, which some of you may have to do for maybe financial reasons or just another job presented itself and you're going from one to another. But it is an opportunity here to lean into what is next, to lean into that pivot. And just journaling has just given me that place, that safe place to get mental clarity and focus. And that sounds like a structure function claim. Hey, isn't that nice? I don't have to worry about compliance right at this moment. But it's a safe container. For me, really to think about and get in touch with what is my true purpose as I'm looking forward to what's next. Why it's important as I wrap things up is, I came across another set of numbers in some of my research this week that 26% of adults in the United States are really happy at their current job. So what does that mean, 26%? That means that 74% or 3 out of 4 people want to be somewhere else when they're at work. And you know what? That is really sad. So, my friends, let's use this in between to move towards our true purpose, shall we? If this message resonated with you, please take a moment, click like below, and subscribe so we can walk together. And remember, the truest thing about you is what God says about you, that you are beautifully and wonderfully created. Until next time.